Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Michael. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
Yeah, I'm excited for the conversation. This is going to be a fun one. But Michael, let's get to know you a little bit. What do you love about content and marketing? Tell us a little bit about your career. Let's kind of get to know you real quick.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks again for having me, Ben. Just for some background on my side, from New York originally, moved out to Los Angeles in 2018 to work in the music, travel, and entertainment space. I was on the growth marketing team for a venture-backed company that raised hundreds of millions of dollars and worked with some of the biggest artists in the world. Ultimately left that company to start my own business in the startup and venture capital ecosystem, connecting founders to investors, which I found a lot of success doing just based on the network I've developed and the need for warm introductions from founders to investors and vice versa. And then I parlayed that into the Nucleus Network, which is my latest venture. I started with one of my best friends, Jake Fleshner. We started this company 9 months ago, and the Nucleus Network is in business to unlock the power of connections. So we work with businesses and individuals across almost every industry. Content is a huge focus for us, obviously generating awareness and eyeballs, but more deeply than that, resonating with a lot of the partners and clients and customers that we work with through content is something that has helped us a lot with inbound, with making connections, which is what we do for a business. So I'm excited to chat on that today.
Love it. Today we're going to talk about something that I don't think we've ever really mentioned on this show, but the power of making connections when it comes to your content. So a lot of times we'll talk about working with subject matter experts. We'll talk about working with other people, but we don't really put a huge emphasis on it. Sometimes we create, content just in this silo. We might leverage AI, but we're just creating content on our own in a business. But there are big opportunities for collaboration and partnership when it comes to content. Michael, what are some of these opportunities that you've seen in the space to really just build better content through partnerships and relationships?
It's a great question, Ben. I'm going to use an example and a case study that my co-founder Jake has implemented over the past couple of months that's worked really well for us. I think a lot of brands, individuals, influencers, they produce content for the masses. And I think there's value for that depending on the context. But to your point, I think there's more value in producing niche content for a niche audience. And so Jake had this idea not too long ago about everyone on social media, and specifically a lot of people on LinkedIn are looking for things. They're looking to receive. They're looking for additional revenue. They're looking to hire more talent. And so Jake's idea, which I've got to give him credit, was a great one, is to try and provide value to as many people as possible while asking nothing in return. So he turned to me one day in the office and he said, Michael, I've got this idea for a content series where I just give free coffee away to people who comment on my post. I said, Jake, that is probably a terrible idea, and I think you should do it. And we laughed about it, and he started implementing it right away. So every week he does this kind of coffee post, first X amount of people to comment, get a free coffee on the Nucleus Network. And the reason it's been so successful is to my point earlier, a lot of people are looking to get rather than give. And we're taking the contrarian approach there and expecting nothing in return. And so every week we're posting and we're getting a lot of, engagement and content. And what it's turned into now is working with partners, to your point, Ben, and sponsors who want to get in front of the audience that we've established and sponsoring the, $5 Starbucks gift card for the 10 or 20 people that we're giving it to. So that's kind of blown up a little bit, and we're excited about that opportunity because there's a lot of avenues you can take it to get more niche with different target demographics that you're looking to get after.
I love that. I love the concept of figure out how you can give before you ask. That's the whole point of content in the first place. Unless you're selling your content as a subscription and that's your actual service, content's there to build a network. It's to build value. It's to build trust so that people, when they're ready to purchase or explore your product, they already know you. They feel like they have a relationship. So I love this concept. I love the case study. Sometimes when it comes to finding those partnerships, though, it can really be difficult. You've built a career around building and fostering relationships. what advice do you have to someone who's on a marketing team, whether it's the head of marketing all the way to the content creator? What can they do to build their own networks and relationships and partnerships and just find people that they can collaborate with? What are some of those basic relationship building strategies that you would recommend?
Great question. It's kind of in line with the same approach we have for that content series I just outlined, which is marketing specifically, but this applies to almost every subdivision in business more broadly. People like to talk in general. I think if more people listened to their audience, to their customer, to their coworkers about what the main objective on the other side of the fence looks like, it would only help them in the short, medium, and long term. And so people who are taking that advice and when building relationships are doing more of the listening and then brainstorming and then positioning, whether it's the message or the offering or the service based on what that other side of the fence is looking for, in my experience, I've found the most success because a lot of people love to talk in general and more specifically talk about themselves. And that's, got a time and place. But when it comes to actually doing business and creating these mutually beneficial relationships and fostering connections to drive business forward, my advice would be listen first, analyze, figure out how you can add the most value up front, provide that value with no expectation of receiving anything in return. And in the long run, you'll find pretty quickly that it'll be returned 10 times over.
I love it. I think that's great. So, obviously there's a theme going on here of giving first, and I think that's the theme of content in general, and I love it. What are some opportunities in content that you've noticed or that you feel like people could really take advantage of where the content is really actually the giving mechanism? Like you said, people love to talk. It's great to listen. How do we give our partners platforms to actually share their message in a beneficial way for both of us? Any ideas or thoughts about that?
Yeah, I see it in a two-pronged approach. And I think the best content producers, the influencers, the brands, the Bens of the world are taking both approaches. So the first one is you can educate. You can provide a platform by leveraging content to your audience to educate them on a subject matter, on a case study, on a thought topic that they may not know much about or they know about, but they're continuously learning. So education is that first prong. The second one is entertainment. So if you can entertain somebody, make them laugh, make them cry, make them feel something, I think the best content touches both of those. If you can educate while entertaining, that's where you see a lot of growth, a lot of engagement, a lot of resonation. The audience, I think, is going to, like you said earlier, Ben, they don't, we have much shorter attention spans now than we used to just as a human race. And so you only have a couple seconds to make a first impression. And so with the content, if you can educate and or entertain the audience member, I think that's where things start to take off for you.
I love it. There's an interesting element when you were talking about your background and everything you do with your business at Nucleus. You have all sorts of connections in all sorts of different areas. And I've always been fascinated by this. How can marketers and other people look outside of like the expected partnerships, the people that you would expect, person A connects with person B because they're in the same space. They talk about the same stuff. What about the opportunities to really branch out and say, hey, I'm in technology. I'm going to go partner with an artist who has no use of technology whatsoever and compel or create a compelling story from that. What's some of the leverage of building networks with like really different backgrounds and types of people and experiences?
And I got to say, those are my favorite connections. We started this business officially 7 months ago. We've made over 1,000 introductions across all these industries. And we've learned over those 1,000 introductions that taking a people first approach always wins, and you can't be transactional. So it's great if an agency is looking to generate new revenue by bringing on more clients. And it's great if a new tech company is looking to land new customers by getting in touch with their ICP. But if you have that in the back of your mind and you look at any given connection, any warm introduction from a people first perspective, and you say to yourself, will Ben get along with Timmy? That has led to exponential growth for all parties, including Nucleus and the partners we're connecting. Because if you get along with the person, you're more inclined to do business with them. You're more inclined to add that value first with nothing in exchange. And it just makes the ways of working so much easier, so much more palatable. And it sets up the foundation for a longer term partnership. And so there's a handful, I'll say transparently, of introductions we've made, I would say probably in the hundreds now, that at first, when we started this business, I would have said out loud, there's no way this is going to work. There's no reason for this, influencer to talk to this tech company, or there's no reason for this athlete to connect with this venture capital fund. And you'd be surprised as to what happens. You don't want to be so narrow-minded. And I've learned this myself when making introductions. There might be a context behind that introduction. Hey, investor, talk to this startup founder because you invest in this space. But maybe they get along as humans and they have the same hobby outside of work. And maybe they start a community that, is in adjacent spaces, and they build something together completely off the track of what the initial context behind that initial introduction was. So we really take a people first approach and try and understand people's values, how people like to engage with other friends, other coworkers, other partners, and it's a combination of an art and a science, I will say. So there's no cookie cutter approach. Every single introduction is different, but we found taking that people first approach has been really valuable.
I love that. So you're focused on the person, not necessarily just the title, the industry, or the experience, but how do these two people really work together? How can they really collaborate and grow together? I love that. And I think sometimes it comes down to really discovering the true why. I think often in businesses, we don't peel back enough of the layers of the onion, and we're looking really at the first layer. Okay, well, this person has this small need and the software solves it. But really the reason they have that need, if you dig down 5 layers deep and do the 5 or 6 whys and really dig down to their needs, there may be some really cool partnership opportunities where someone really emulates that. I know that there was a brand, and not to talk overly vague, there was a brand that I interviewed on the podcast a while ago, and they got Simone Biles, and they're like a tech company from what I can recall. They got Simone Biles to come on as a campaign and talk about a lot of this really powerful stuff about her struggles and the things she had done. And it really resonated with the audience. And it wasn't a sales pitch. It wasn't anything like that. It was, can we connect with our audience through telling a unique story? Because they had dug through enough layers of the onion to find out what really is mattering to their audience. And I think that's so powerful. Any recommendations for finding those golden nugget opportunities of partnerships where you really may not have thought there should be a connection in the first place, but really it's something you should explore and contemplate building?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the example you gave with, Simone Biles and that tech company, because we've made many similar introductions, like I said, between whether it's athletes and influencers, brands, tech companies, investors, founders. It's an art and a science, but it also, you kind of have to go with your gut. The fact that at Nucleus we connect great people to great people, the idea behind that is that we know both sides. So we know them as people, we know them as businesses, we know what they're looking to achieve. And so if we have this gut feeling that, Ben would really get along with this contact that we've either done business with or have gotten dinners with, we make that introduction once we get the double opt-in, because the possibilities are really endless. Human nature, right? Humans are innately curious. And so to your example with Simone, her audience obviously has some sort of athletic, interest, given that's the space that she's dominated in. But that doesn't mean that they're not interested in learning more about or participating in or venturing into the tech space or, another adjacent industry. And so I think going in with, we always say we really have a strict rule at Nucleus. We only work with open-minded individuals. And I think that has proven to help not only ourselves as a business, but a lot of the clients and the partners and the customers we work with, because when you connect one open mind to another open mind, the possibilities are truly endless, and you let them do most of the talking, right? We're facilitators. We're going to provide context on both sides of the introduction, and we're going to make sure that those two parties have a fruitful conversation. But we're not here to steer that conversation in any given path. There's multiple ways that conversation could go down, and outcomes as a result of that. And so really leaning into that and letting these conversations go with the flow. The amount of partnerships and transactions, but also friendships and relationships that have resulted from our introductions is not something I would have ever guessed would have occurred, in the short 7 or 8 months since we started.
I love that. I love that. Just to summarize some of the things that I've learned from this discussion, look for opportunities to collaborate and build partnerships with other people. Even inside of content, there's opportunities to create powerful material, leveraging other people's stories. And maybe some of those connections are not going to be the ones you originally thought of, but if there's a cool way to tell a story and collaborate with someone, listen. I love that perspective. Listen first. Give before asking, and just give without asking anything at all. And I think that those are some valuable opportunities for businesses and marketers in general. So, Michael, this has been incredible. I appreciate everything that you've shared. If anyone wants to reach out and continue the conversation with you, how and where do they find you?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ben. You can find me on LinkedIn, Michael Axman, or you can check out our website at thenucleusnetwork.com, and there's a contact submission form. We're open-minded individuals, always happy to take an intro call or learn more about what people are doing, especially if they're in your ecosystem and your network, Ben. So thanks for taking the time and having me on the show.
Love it. Again, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.